Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 21 of 2019. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow us on Twitter at the Odds Breakers or subscribe to Facebook and Instagram /The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by uwager.eu. For a 50% first-time bonus, please visit uwager. Use the promo code TheOddsBreakers. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs, sponsor the podcast. We'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a member for $12.99 a month. You'll get my picks before the line moves. For $2 more, you can be a patron subscriber, get all that, and get the podcast a little bit early. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and sign up for our free picks newsletter. Although we are doing some construction to our website, so it's been kind of up and down lately. Hate to leave it completely down, but there has been some issues with it during the process. Should be cleared all up by this weekend. We're always looking to make improvements. We want to add some stats to it, some odds, some live odds going on via XMLs. Obviously, keep our handicappers rolling and putting out plays for you throughout the whole summer. We're going to be doing some horse racing soon. Can't wait for that. We are also going to be getting more involved in the future bets of college football as well as the NFL. We're going to be doing our NFL Draft podcast next week. But this episode, we are going to focus a little bit on college football odds that are currently out for some of the futures. And we are going to also talk about a play that we have already for the futures of the 2019 NCAA championship. And we're going to talk a little bit, of course, about the draft and the top 10 quarterbacks that I have ranked. So before we get into some of the current futures that came out, I just want to mention that NFL season win totals came out, and a lot of people look at strength of schedule. We're going to go more into that after the draft on our NFL season win totals podcast. Obviously, if you listened last time, we already gave you out one season win total that we bet on. But when you look at strength of schedule, there's three major ways of doing it. And I'm going to start with the worst first. The worst is what CBS and lots of other media put out as strength of schedule based upon 2018 winning percentage. Now, the reason this is the worst is because there's some teams that would have done a lot better than they would have had they not been in injury woes or had they not had a super hard schedule. For example, last year, the San Francisco 49ers had a ton of injuries, including their quarterback being knocked out. So you know that a team playing them should affect their schedule more adversely than what it shows with this way of doing it based upon winning percentage. If they happen to play them in the Redskins, you know, the Redskins had a ton of injury woes itself, so it's going to look like their schedule is way easier than it might actually be. So that's why this is a terrible way of doing it. You know, some teams just had a really hard schedule last year, like Cleveland Browns, like the Buffalo Bills, and, you know, you have to factor in that, you know, they had a pretty tough ride. Being that winning percentage can change, obviously, so much depending upon your schedule, because that's what the NFL does. They make the good teams, they punish them with the hardest schedule, and they give the easy teams the easiest schedule. For example, in the conference, you obviously play your teams twice, then you share an AFC at-large conference, and then you play an NFC conference altogether, and then you play the two at-large teams from the other two NFC, just talking about NFC team and NFC conference. If you were first in your division, you're going to play the first place team in Division C and the first place team in Division D. If you're fourth place, you're going to play the fourth place team in Division C and the fourth place team in Division D. So the NFL definitely rewards you for having a bad year, and that's why it kind of shakes things up a little bit. And that's another reason why people do not like buying winning percentage. The next way people will look at is the Pythagorean winning percentage of the year before, meaning you can take total points scored over total points scored plus total points against, and then you multiply that by 16. The reason that this is so valid is because what if a team went 16-0, but they only won each game by 1 point? Their expected winning percentage should have been around 8.5 or something. It evens it out for luck, meaning that this team just had some really bad luck and lost at the very end. There could be other aspects of it, but it shows that this team wasn't really blowing out a ton of other teams. So that's why people like the Pythagorean winning percentage when it looks into expected wins. But once again, this doesn't take out for injuries. Another way people do it, actually, and I guess there's 4 ways, not 3, is people can look at their own power ratings and then look at the team's schedule and add up the power rating of each team they play, and the person with the highest points obviously has the hardest schedule. So you can do it by power ratings. And the best way to do it is looking at Vegas and what they say. Each team facing their expected winning percentage or team total for the year. So if the Chicago Bears are playing a bunch of teams that are expected to win a lot of games, because Vegas already adjusts for San Francisco's woes and Cleveland's new players they brought in and things like that, then the Bears would have a much harder schedule. So actually kind of using Vegas's win totals against them to actually find out how hard a strength of schedule is probably the best way of doing it. But you should incorporate everything. A lot of people for Pythagorean, instead of using total points, they use total yards, meaning teams would get to the 15-yard line and just couldn't score a lot. Now, there's an element to being clutch, obviously, and efficient in the red zone. But, that way it's not just dumb luck points that some teams get on fumbles and turnovers. So you can either go by yards for Pythagorean or you can go by points. I guess it really doesn't matter, but you should factor in everything. And then when you decide to bet a team win total, you see what players they lost, what players they gain. And then, their strength of schedule is obviously extremely important. You can even do a little bit deeper dive. I guess if there's a 5th way that people do it, they just look at each game and they put W or L by it, the old school way of figuring out how many times somebody could win. I guess the advantage to that is looking at spots. Like, for example, I believe Miami's got to play 4 or 5 road games in a row. So you might want to, that's a detriment to them. So, a team's schedule might look better than it really actually is, depending upon travel and things like that. So, there's a lot that goes into it, and I spend a lot of time doing it. I already have gotten started, but it's not going to finish until after the draft. So, just wanted to let you know how people come up with NFL season win totals and how people decide to go about coming up with a system to bet it. All right. Now that we covered that, we'll probably have to repeat some of that in our next, when we do our NFL season win totals. I want to go into some of the future bets that we have out there for college. Now, I'm going to start with the Heisman Trophy. Now, betonline.ag has some odds out on this. There's not a lot of other places that do, and there's only a few of them, a few players, maybe a 20 or so that have odds on them for Heisman. The 2 favorites are obviously Trevor Lawrence, and he's at only 3.5 to 1, plus 350, and Tua Tagovailoa at plus 500 or only 5 to 1. Now, those odds don't look that good when it comes to betting Heisman, but to be completely honest with you, if you watch these guys last year They were absolutely amazing. And they were runners up in the Heisman race as it is. A lot of people said it should have went to Tua. And these guys coming back for another year with the amount of talent that Clemson and Alabama recruits, it's easy to see why that these guys are probably, one of them probably going to win. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have a problem with somebody or one of you taking both of these guys for a small amount and then maybe later taking a long shot for half the amount. Me personally, I'm not going to get too excited at 5-1 or 3.5 to 1. I'm going to wait and see if some other buzz names come out there like Jake Fromm or, Sam Ellinger, or if there's anything that's going to affect it. So you might get a little bit better odds on Trevor or Lawrence. I mean, this is only one book too. I'm waiting on more books, but right now on Bet Online, plus 350 and plus 500, it wouldn't hurt to take both of them. And you're going to profit either way. I'm personally going to wait. Now, Jalen Hurts is plus 650. I am definitely fading the hell out of that one because Oklahoma only returns one offensive lineman, and there's a reason that Alabama switched to Tua. So definitely don't like that one. Another one I don't like is from my badges. Jonathan Taylor is at 12-1. That's terrible odds for him because Paul Chryst only runs him about 60 to 65% of the plays per game. That's not even nearly enough. Now, the Big Ten West has definitely gotten better with Nebraska coming up. You saw Minnesota's defense. You saw Northwestern go to the Big Ten championship game. Purdue with Jeff Brom. A lot more challenging there. Plus, Wisconsin's got a relatively tougher schedule is conference-wise this year. I would not touch Jonathan Taylor at 12-1. I'd rather take Travis Etienne at 12-1 running for Clemson. He's going to get the bulk of the carries there. Sam Ellinger at 16-1. That's Sam Ellinger is a very gritty quarterback, but they don't have a super pass heavy type offense. And, I think that there's definitely quarterbacks that are going to have a better shot than him. I also think that these odds are just pretty bad as, coming out so early, just trying to sucker some people in. So I'm not touching this until much later. But in the future, I have no problem with you taking Trevor Lawrence or Tua Tagovailoa with possibly a long shot for Heisman Trophy. College football championship odds to win. I got to tell you, Clemson and Bama are definitely favorite. And then you have Georgia right there, 7-1. Bama was 2.25-1 and Clemson 1.75-1. Would never touch that. That's terrible odds. I think Clemson will make the actual college football mix. But as a matter of fact, Clemson is minus 250 to make the 4-team playoff. That's probably not even that bad. I don't see who's going to beat Clemson this year. Alabama's at minus 250. I would rather take Clemson because Bama's got tougher competition in the SEC West, in my opinion. I don't think Miami's going to be great this year in the ACC. Florida State still up and coming. I just don't see. Maybe Syracuse is going to be a lot better this year. I don't know, but I don't see who's going to stop Clemson from making that 14 playoff. So minus 250 is not that bad, but having them win it all, definitely do not like their odds there, and would rather do a money line rollover starting maybe the last 4 games of the year. Definitely would pay off a little bit more. It's also called a mechanical parlay, but there is one team that I do like at 30-1 to win the college football championship, and that is the Texas Longhorns. Okay, and here's the reason why that is, and just a small bet. You're not going to put too much on it. Something that you can easily hedge out if they do make the playoffs. Texas had a great recruiting class in 2016. If you look at it, they ranked 7th in the nation. Okay? 7th only behind Alabama, LSU, Florida State, Ohio State, Ole Miss, and Georgia. Their recruiting class in 2016